It's now been 5 weeks since my first 50K ultramarathon. We have officially entered the pain cave. And I was thinking, if I were to do that race all over again, there are some things that I feel like I did really well that set me up for success. And there are some things that I would have changed. So if you're signing up to complete your first ultramarathon this year, you're gonna feel confident going into the race. Now, the first thing that I think I did well, but I'd also change at the same time, I didn't invest in a much better vest. I didn't even take the tag off this one. I thought that I was gonna be able to get by from buying a vest off Amazon and kind of just winging it in this area. But as soon as this showed up to my house and I put it on and I did a couple of jogs across my living room with this on, I realized that this is probably something that I'm going to want to invest in. And when you're thinking about your first ultra, what you really want to do is reduce the amount of oh shit moments while you're out there. And one of them that can happen is you don't have enough fuel or water on you, and that's predicated on investing in a vest. So what I did was, instead of spending the $200 up front for my first ultra, I reached out to a friend who's run 100 milers, 50 milers, and is way more experienced in this sport than I am, and he was happy to lend me his vest. So if you don't want to drop the money on your first race, please reach out to a friend or the community online. I'm sure somebody will be willing to lend you their vest. I ran with a Solomon vest that was a game changer the day of the race. The second thing that I feel that I was really prepared for was chafing. And if you're a man out there, you know that one of the worst things that's gonna cause a bad time for you if you get chafing on your nuts or on your legs. It's one of those things that I think most people think about, but they really don't understand that if you're out there for 6 hours or more and you start chafing, it's going to make it a really tough time. It's going to be annoying. It's going to be frustrating. And if you can prevent that, I highly recommend doing so. So I use this product called Happy Nuts. This was used for my groin and legs. And because it was a little bit chilly and I was running with a long sleeve on for most of the race, I used Body Glide for my upper body. Again, something that I think everybody should be investing in is a vest and then these two things. Outside of these two things, it's gonna be catered a little bit more towards the individual. So now I'm gonna go through some of the things that I did individually that I think were really helpful for me. This third thing was I chose to invest into Speedland trail running shoes. They have the BOA system, which allows you to click in and click out very easily. If you're a snowboarder, you're probably familiar with this system. You use them for your boots. These things have Michelin tire on the bottom of them. One of the things that I realized when I started trail running and preparing for this race was that if you can minimize your risk of turning an ankle, slipping and falling over the course of a very long day, you drastically increase your chances of finishing the race and keeping your body intact. So that's why I decided to invest into these. I also had a pair of Nikes just in case, but these lasted really well for the 31 miles that I was running. Now, what did I do for nutrition? Because that's a huge thing on race day. If you're going into your first race, I highly recommend that you start trying different gels and products throughout your training. That way on race day, it doesn't mess with your stomach or an allergic reaction or other irritations that could affect your race. I'm not gonna go through all the products and gels that I used, but I will touch on a product that I consider the dark horse for me. And it was these Costco chocolate peanut butter balls. I only brought 3 of these to the race. I actually had them in a Ziploc bag, and it was something that I was gonna try on race day. I didn't train with them at all. I just looked at these in my brother's closet because I was staying with him and realized that if I eat 2 of these, there's 200 calories. So I felt like it was a great way to get some quick calories in. And what ended up happening was after, I believe, mile 18, I had 3 of these, so that was 300 quick calories. I felt the best that I'd felt all race, and these, I believe, are what helped me. So going into my next ultra, this is something I'm gonna be adding, but it's also something for everybody else out there to be aware of. You can also probably make these on your own. So peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter, and some oat flour, and figure out how to put them together yourself if you really wanna go about it that way, or head to Costco and grab these for your ultra. Now, outside of the tools and resources that I had for the race, I think that I tactically approached this race a little bit more uniquely than other people do, and it was beneficial. So the first tactic I used for this race was running it with a friend. When I first signed up for this ultra, I put it out on social media and I texted a couple friends. And fortunately, I had a good friend of mine, Jeff, who was willing to sign up for the race, train for it, and be there with me on the day of the race. Why do I think this is beneficial to your first race? Because it takes the pressure off of, one, having to finish at a specific time. I think too many people go out into their first race or first anything that they're doing in life, comparing themselves to other people who are already great at it. And if you're doing it with a friend, you're much more likely to just go out and enjoy the experience with each other rather than trying to compete with each other and really get this fast time that you really shouldn't be doing your first time out. So going into this race, Jeff and I were sharing training programs with each other, products we were trying. It made the entire experience more enjoyable. And on race day, instead of being out there in the pain cave alone, we were chatting, we were talking, we were having a good time, even though both of us were in a bit of pain. So as you're considering showing up to that first race, maybe there's somebody else out there that is looking to have a more enjoyable experience. They're not after chasing that PR, and they love to join you in the race. Another thing that I had considered prior to signing up for my race was the amount of elevation and where the location of the race was actually going to be held. I didn't want my first ultra to be one in Colorado where I was going to be doing a lot of uphill climbing and there was a ton of elevation that I'd have to deal with. I wanted it to be hard, but I wanted it to be something that I could accomplish and something that I didn't have to derail my life to train for. And Lake Norman, North Carolina was perfect for that. The entire trail was in the woods. There was enough elevation to have enough of a feeling of going up some hills and down some hills, but it didn't crush my legs. I feel like it's a great place for anybody to experience their first ultramarathon. Another thing to consider when you're picking location is how close the place you're staying, the hotel or Airbnb, or in my case, I was staying with family, is to the race. Because the morning of the race, you're going to have to drive there, spend a little bit of time warming up, and then spend all day there before you get back to wherever it is that you're staying. For my ultra, we were within 15 minutes driving distance to the starting line. This helped out in the morning leading up to the race where I got a little bit of extra sleep and was able to warm up. And then after the race, after the 6 hours of being on the course, I was within 15 minutes to just get back to the house, eat some food, and recover. Going into future races, now that I've already completed something, maybe I can extend that. But for somebody that's considering going out and running their first long distance ultra, I highly recommend being close to the starting line and just reducing the amount of friction and variables that you're going to be having to deal with. Now, the last thing that I did, and this might be controversial to other advice out there, but for your first race, I did not hire a coach, and I recommend other people do that as well. Like, don't invest your money into a coach just yet. I believe that that's going to put the pressure on you to finish in a certain time and really just take away from the experience rather than add to experience. Now, I'm not saying don't reach out to people and watch videos and ask for tips and tricks. I think there's something to be said about providing a more enjoyable experience for yourself as you're getting introduced to something. So in my case, I didn't hire a coach. I didn't even follow a strict program. I didn't want to derail my life by training for this ultra. I didn't train and run 10 miles per day. There was a lot of things that I didn't do that I think a lot of other coaches or people are going to tell you you must do to run an ultra marathon. A specific example is the longest time that I ever ran leading up to the race was 16 miles. I only did that one time. So I only ran half the distance of the actual ultra in practice. And most of my runs were really like 5 to 10 miles and every other day. I wasn't training hardcore every day. It wasn't something that was taking over my life, but I made sure that I got enough mileage in as well as strength train my legs so that on the day of the race, I know it might be a little bit painful for me, but I knew that I could complete it as long as I had the fuel and the different resources I needed to feel confident. And again, maybe that coach will give you that confidence, but in my life, I feel like until I understand what it is I'm trying to get out of something or where I'm trying to go with it, I'd rather make it a more enjoyable experience. And for me, and for anybody else that's considering running an ultra, I think you should be doing your first one for fun and therefore putting a plan together that fits you and your lifestyle first, and then maybe consider hiring that coach afterwards if you're looking to improve upon your time. Now, I just went over a lot of areas that I focused on and that I would do again in a race. But here's 2 things that I would have switched if I could redo it over again. The first thing is I would have packed some type of muscle cream or icy hot patch, something that would have helped when I was halfway through the race. The legs start getting achy, I start getting a little bit cold, would have definitely helped. The second thing is I would have changed my shorts and my socks regardless of how I was feeling. So throughout that race, I was flying high with adrenaline. I felt great for most of the race. Friends and family were there. So I wasn't really focused on how my socks were feeling and how my shorts were feeling and the different clothes that I was wearing. So I just pretty much wung it and finished the race with the same socks I wore the whole time, same shorts and same shirt. The next go around, I'm going to switch that up because I need to be a little bit smarter in that area. Something that happened during the race was it rained for 10 minutes. And if it had rained a little bit longer, the fact that I already had been wearing my socks for 4 or 5 plus hours might have hurt my feet a lot more than it did. So as you're going into your first race, make sure that you have multiple sets of clothes. And even if it's not necessarily soaking wet, I recommend getting in the habit of switching it frequently or at each aid station. That way you're just having fresh clothes on and you're less likely to chafe. Now that I've been able to reflect on my first race, going into my next ultra, which I'm eyeing a 50 miler, I can now take these tips and implement them on the day of that race. So if you're also somebody that's considering signing up for a 50 miler this year, or a 100 miler, or even the 50K like I did, please let me know. I'd love to connect with you.